That is from 10th Avenue North here at Real Life Radio, 105.5 and 90.9 The Vine. The best Christian music for you and your family. Stars in the night. Good morning and welcome back. It's the Vine Morning Show. Here we are on this Friday morning, and we welcome those who are watching by Vine Television on our YouTube channel and also cable channel 15, New Wave Cable TV channel 15. We welcome you watching this morning, and Randy, we have a couple of special guest in studio with us this morning, don't we?
We sure do, Mark. We have a gentleman from Fairfield that many of you know, Gene Kolak, and also a gentleman from Albion, Steve Smith, that a lot of you know this morning. And we're going to be discussing a topic that I think is really of interest to a lot of our listeners this morning and a lot of our viewers as well, because it's certainly in the news. And before we begin this discussion this morning, let me give a little bit of a disclaimer here. Many of you know, of course, that the Vine Radio Ministry is a nonprofit 501c3 radio ministry, Christian radio station, and because of that, we do have to abide by certain FCC regulations. And so, to clarify what this discussion is going to be this morning, we want to abide by those FCC regulations and tell you right up front that this is not a political discussion, okay? Because we, as a nonprofit Christian radio station, can't really engage in what we would call a political discussion whereby we would endorse a particular candidate or endorse a political party or anything like that. And that's not what this is this morning. This is not a political discussion, although it may sound like it at some times, I guess. It's really a moral discussion, a biblical discussion, and certainly a religious discussion. And that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Both Gene and Steve are joining us today because earlier this week they went over to St. Louis and attended a rally over there. It was an anti-Planned Parenthood rally, and a lot of you have seen in the news that Planned Parenthood has been engaged in a variety of things that really has disgusted many of us as Christians. Not only the fact that they do abortions on a regular basis, but now they have been caught red-handed on video in selling body parts of these fetuses, which is just, it's just incredible that this is going on. And the sad thing about that is that we as taxpayers, all of us sitting here and those of you listening, we're all paying for this. And so it is something that is of concern to many of us. And they learned a lot by attending the rally in St. Louis, and we're just happy to visit with them this morning here on the Vine and on cable TV to talk about it. So, gentlemen, welcome to the Vine Studios.
Great to be here. Thanks for asking us.
Okay. Who wants to begin, and what led you guys to go to St. Louis? I know you're passionate about this, so just tell us what led you to go there.
Steve had approached me, asked me if I'd be willing to go with him over to St. Louis, and of course this is a issue that, you know, pretty close to me. I was a two-term member of the Compassion Pregnancy Center Board there in Fairfield, and I'm also adopted, which I feel like had I been born after 1973, which I'm going to give my age away here, but that I may not be sitting here today.
Sure.
You know, and it's just a very, very good possibility that I would have been, knowing my circumstances at the time. So it didn't take me long to say yes, you know, and of course Steve and I, we've been down the road a lot together through the years, and when Steve has something he feels strongly about, I usually jump on board with him. So away we went. It was a hot day, and we headed to St. Louis, and you know, I'm a little disappointed. I really expected to see in the neighborhood of 3,000, 10,000, 30,000. I mean, that's how I feel about it. I mean, I kind of felt like there would be more outcry against this, but there wasn't. You know, I mean, there was somewhere between 100 and 300 people at this very large center, you know, and like we were discussing it, actually, I think it covered the better part of half a city block. So
wow.
The Planned Parenthood Center there on Forest Avenue is huge. You know, it's a gated facility. There was a large fence around the whole thing, and you know, you had to go through a gate to get in, which none of us were allowed to even touch the fence that day, which it was, you know, if I had, and I had mentioned this to Steve, I kind of felt like the, you know, security officers and staff were a little bit rude towards us, but maybe that was expected given the difference in how we view things. So, Steve, I'll let you take over here.
I'm kind of like Gene, and I'll tell you what, I grew up in a family that was, for the most part, pro-choice. I never put much thought into pro-choice or pro-life, and then became a Christian and then started hanging around some different people. But the thing that changed me was having a son that we adopted. And if this young lady had made any other choice than adoption, I may not have the greatest gift I could ever had other than my wife and God. And so I've become pretty strong, opinionated about adoption as an option. I will tell you this, my heart cries out for the pregnancy centers. And when I say that, I mean the Christian ones like Compassion Pregnancy Center, the Hope Pregnancy Center in Mount Carmel. The Hope Center, a small part of what we do is a pregnancy center, and the ladies that volunteer to really inform the ladies and the young men. I think they give them the full picture, of what's really going to happen. And I thought I knew a little bit about Planned Parenthood, but the little time that we went over this week, I learned so much more. And, on TV right now, we're hearing a lot about we should defund Planned Parenthood. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think we should defund Planned Parenthood at all. I think we need to just close them all down and give all that money to the local level. And I don't know how it would work with separation of church and state, but how about giving it to the people that are right there on the front lines? And I think they're in all of our communities now. So I know 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have really the pregnancy centers that we do, but they're here now. Mm-hmm. So why not support those? They're going to tell these young people about, and it's not always young people, but they're going to tell them about adoption as an option. They're going to tell them, they're going to let them see the ultrasound. Mm-hmm. And what I have seen, those ultrasounds are so compelling that that's a life. And if we just listen to the mainstream media on what a life is, they say, they're trying to tell these young ladies it's just tissue. And if you go with the way that the doctors describe the tissue, some of the things I've heard that you can actually say that we need to abort up to age 2 because little babies, 1-year-old, can't make a decision on themselves. So how extreme do we want to go? But we got to stop somewhere. And I'm for saying we need to stop right now. And so we'll tell a little bit more about the Planned Parenthood things we've seen. But yeah, I leaned against the fence, and the security guy comes over and says, "You can't touch the fence." And I was just asking him. I was trying to be nice. How long have you worked here? Are you just here for the day? And he wouldn't talk to me whatsoever. Wow. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to share this one here because of the mentality. Because I know Gene's worked with the ladies in Fairfield, and I've worked with the ladies in Mount Carmel, and especially in Albion. And there's some men involved too, but the strangest thing that I'd seen, and I'd never seen this before in my life, and I don't know if I should go there, but I'm going to. But, we were there for a rally. We're there to save lives. We're there to educate. And we seen a young lady, aged 20 years old. Her name was Mary. And people think that Gene and I can be bold. This lady makes us look tame.
Really?
She was wow. Stopping the cars as they came into Planned Parenthood very nicely, and she had a brochure. I brought one, but it just talks about your options. And before you go in there, can I help you? Can I just give you this literature? And while she's trying to talk nicely on the sidewalk that's open to the public, the people from Planned Parenthood were blowing whistles, getting their attention, getting the security, say, "Get that car in here, get that car in here." Well, she had a right, too, to be out on the sidewalks and give her opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, as we were there as a rally, it was, organized, it was calm, cool. Even though we're upset, but it was calm, cool. But there was a car that drove by and literally flipped off the crowd. Mm-hmm. And the only time you really heard something from Planned Parenthood and their workers, because they had them all outside, stand with Planned Parenthood, but you wouldn't believe.
Jumped up and down.
Jumped up and down, hoot and hollered like they'd won $1 million because someone flipped our group off. And that's the mentality that just disgusts me. And if that's what's going to happen on the outside there in public, what's going on in the inside?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
That's right. Well, even the very name Planned Parenthood is very misleading. When people hear the name Planned Parenthood, they think that that's a positive thing, and it's anything but positive. And we're starting to see more and more of that with these videos that have come out, because if you don't have Facebook or you haven't watched any of the television accounts lately, there's been several videos that have been released, that have been produced, where there are employees of Planned Parenthood actually in negotiations and discussions for selling body parts of these aborted fetuses. And it is very disgusting. It really is. And unfortunately, a spokesman for the current administration is even denying that the videos are real.
Calling them fraudulent. Yeah.
And that's very troublesome to those of us who are Christians as well. And so we've reached a real fork in the road, shall we say, here in America. And I don't know about you guys, but I think we discussed this a little bit off mic before we even came in, that, Gene, it seems like we've kind of become desensitized to abortion.
We have.
And now this situation with selling the body parts, too.
It's very disgusting to see in the last, 3 days, they've been talking about Cecil the lion that was killed over in Africa. And however that was done, I don't know. But, that poor dentist, he is now being
vilified, yeah.
Vilified. They're wanting his license. They're wanting to ruin his business. And he's even getting death threats. I told somebody the other day, I said, this whole issue of life, it transcends politics. We can talk about politics all day. It's way outside of the realm of politics. And you guys may have read this. I put this on Facebook the other day. I said, hey, if these same people were to man a spaceship that was going to Pluto and they found 2 cells writhing in the sand on Pluto, they would be screaming from the rooftops that we have found life. And yet we have life within the womb. And it's so diminished. I personally don't have that mindset. I just feel like that. Of course, I'm a Christian. And from my Christian viewpoint, and it's my opinion, that life begins. When those cells within the womb decide to meet and start to form that little body, that's life. And it's precious.
Sure is.
And I think, 50 million later that we've aborted, surely God is looking at us and thinking, man, what have I done? What have I created here that would snuff out so many lives? And so I have a passion about it. Steve and I have been down this road a few times. I remember when I first met him, we were talking about adoption and there are other alternatives,
Absolutely.
The Compassion Pregnancy Center in Fairfield, I'll just throw out a plug for them. I served on their board for 2 terms, and I got to tell you, the ladies that work there in Fairfield, they're angels amongst us. They are the most compassionate, friendly. If you are a young lady in need of their services, I'll highly recommend that you go see them. We went medical now. We now have the sonogram. Someone graciously donated that to us, and we've built on, and we have nurses that can run that program, and it's very safe, and it's a wonderful addition there in Fairfield. And like Steve said, a lot of times when they see that picture, that might be the difference of going on with an abortion or deciding to go full term. So. There was another number that I read, I think just this morning. There's like 9,000 plus centers for young women in the United States. And there's like 670 of the Planned Parenthood. So like Steve said, you take that 500 million and you spread that out amongst those 900 localized centers. Look at the good. And I wouldn't have a problem with it as a taxpayer if my money was spread out like that, other than being forced into 600 and some that I don't agree with their policies. So, and that's my opinion.
Yeah. Sure. Well, guys, stick around. We just have begun our discussion this morning. We have a lot more to get to. Again, we have Gene Kolak and Steve Smith with us in studio, talking about a rally that they attended in St. Louis earlier this week, an anti-rally against Planned Parenthood, and we're discussing some of the things that have been coming out in the news here in the last few days that Planned Parenthood has been engaged in. And again, this is funded by our taxes, and so it's something that is of interest and concern to all of us and should be.
And Randy, we're going to come back here in just a few moments, talk more with Steve and Gene in a moment.
Lyle Dean.
Good morning and welcome back into the Vine Morning Show. Here we are on this Friday morning. I'm Mark, and it's great to have in studio again with us this morning Steve Smith from Albion, Gene Kolak from Fairfield. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
And hang on there, Steve. Let's try this one here. There you go. You're on the air now with us. Good morning and welcome back in. And you know, guys, we've been talking about the anti-Planned Parenthood rally you guys attended in St. Louis. That was on Tuesday over there in St. Louis. And I shared with you guys off the air early before we came back on. There was a survey that was done, and of course, you know, we don't know how accurate this one is, but should the federal government defund Planned Parenthood? And I shared with you guys 33% say yes and 67% say no. And, you know, sometimes, guys, I think a lot of these surveys, there's a lot of, you know, you don't know how accurate that survey is. But I think a lot of that, too, is it kind of shows that people are not informed like they should be. Don't you agree?
I agree.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I may be part of that 60% to kind of put a spin on it a little bit here, Mark. I am not for defunding Planned Parenthood. And you're like, well, Steve, how could you be for that? You know, you're going over to a rally and this and that. And actually, it was a women betrayed rally. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. I'm not for defunding it. I'm for just closing them down.
Yeah, period.
So I think there's two options, defund or close them down, because there's just so much bad happening. And so saying that, what I've got here, let me put my fancy glasses on, just to put it out there in facts. And let me kind of have a disclaimer. On the way over here, Gene and I were talking. Yeah, we both go to church and we're both Christians. But you know what? Things should be black and white, yes and no. And so for the people that listen that maybe don't go to church, aren't a Christian, I don't think it matters with what we're talking about. Right is right and wrong is wrong. So if there's people out there that says, you know, I don't want to have the church preaching to me. I'm not speaking from the church. I'm just speaking as a human being that sees it both ways. But let me read some of this. And by the way, this says, please note, all stats were obtained from Planned Parenthood's 2013-2014 annual report. And then it's got a little thing that says their last report publicly released. So let me start off in 2013. It says Planned Parenthood facilities performed 327,653 abortions. This means they committed 897 abortions every single day. And 94% of Planned Parenthood's pregnancy services were abortions. You know, they try to say that they're doing a lot of other things, but this is from their own annual report. And then what most of us know that's been in the news and just on TV, Planned Parenthood received $528.4 million in U.S. taxpayer funding, making up 46% of their annual revenue. So most of what the money they're getting is from us, and most of it is being used. They say that it's not being used for abortions, but I'll tell you what, one of the things that just jumped out at me when Gene and I were there, I didn't know it at the time. I got to speaking to this young lady, and she brought her little baby with her. It was probably about 2 years old. And we were just talking, and, you know, and I was just asking her why you're here. She says, well, I don't agree with what's going on. Little did I know she was the next speaker.
Beautiful lady.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. Kyla, and I'll tell you what, she's in the program, and I got the program here, but they call her a Planned Parenthood client survivor. And, you know, she talks about, when she went in there, she really went step by step when she went in there, and more how, to me, she was a number, she was a stat. That's a hard decision to make. You know, when you're dealing with life, whether they're choosing adoption, abortion, what's my next, can I raise this child? That's a hard decision that these ladies are going in there to make, a lot of times on their own, sometimes with a boyfriend or husband or whatever. But she talked about crying and them not having tissues in there. That's something that just jumped out at me. It's like, okay, folks, go buy $1 worth of Kleenex. Help these ladies at least have some kind of empathy, just feelings for these people. And she just talked about the best decision she made was walking out and not going in and going on with that. And I will tell you this, I felt very blessed to see it firsthand, but I did see a couple drive in. I seen Mary, witness to them as they're driving in. But as the rally was going on, I seen them park their car and come out to the rally and really get the information.
Wow.
And so since the time, I've received several emails from people that were there, and they passed this information on. There's going to be some other rallies coming up, but I do believe that we were blessed to see at least one family not go in, and I don't know what they were going in for sure, but it could have been an abortion. But as a result of the rallies, it says that there was, in Houston and Pittsburgh, there were at least 2 children saved from abortion as a direct result of the Women Betrayed rally. So, it does matter. We were talking kind of when we were off air here. How do we get people involved?
Yeah, exactly. I think more people need to get more and more involved in this, be more informed about it.
And I'll let Gene speak about the 100 or 300 people that were there. Gene and I both are in agreement that, we see things a little bit different. We're a little bit outspoken. Yeah, you might have to take a vacation day to go to something like this, but I guarantee you people take vacation days for a lot worse.
Yes.
And, to have 100 to 300 people there is better than 1 or 2. But I guess in my heart, I was hoping to see elders and deacons and preachers. And, it's hard to tell how many were there. But I did see a priest there, and he was there. But I would love to see van loads of churches and bus loads and just go over there and support this. It's not a fun topic to talk about. And so I'd like to pass it over to Gene and let Gene talk about how many sermons and how many things, because he's a lot older than me, but how many sermons he's actually heard from the pulpit about abortion. So go ahead, Gene, take it over.
Yeah. Well, I'm just a great believer that numbers matter in some instances. What is a rally? If one person shows up on a street corner, it doesn't attract much attention, but you put 1,000 people out there in a small town or a small city, and it has an impact.
It sure does.
What are those people doing there? So, when Steve asked me to go, I thought, well, this could be big, and I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of it anyway, but I really expected to see more than 100 to 300 people, and numbers vary, but I would say that's pretty accurate. And like you said, I've been around a little while. I'm just a couple years older than Steve. But, the sermons that I've heard from the pulpit have been few and far between on the issue of abortion. And I think we talked about this earlier before we sat down. People are desensitized. They just don't have that passion about the unborn, about life in general. It's like we're rushing headlong into our next, whatever it is that we're entertained with, the next ball game, the next movie. People get excited about all that. Look, Cecil the Lion got more attention the last 3 days than these videos on most of the national news media. It took them a long time to pick up on this, and that's very disconcerting to me.
Yeah.
Very. I'm just blown away by how life is just not precious to people.
Yeah. Something else, guys, that when you mentioned, with this going on, and I was reading something earlier in the week about it, how much major corporations out there back Planned Parenthood. And it will shock some people if you don't know that these organizations back this organization.
And their name brands
and
too,
their
Mark.
name brands. And without mentioning them, it's sad, isn't it, Steve? Very sad.
It is, but the good thing about this, some of them are backing away. I won't say the names, but do some research. You can Google, who has turned away from it, and I kind of admire that.
Yeah, they're feeling convicted because now they're getting their eyes open more and more to this as it's becoming a major issue, not only on maybe a spiritual level, but as affecting them as a business as well.
I think so, and I'll tell you what, just going to the rally, something that we've heard on TV, it doesn't matter what news channel you're listening to, but the Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, not being political about it, but there's a lot to be said about All Lives Matter. And when we went to this rally, there was an African American lady that got up and spoke, and she says, "Black Lives Matter," and I'm thinking, oh please. Follow up with that, and instantly she's like, "All lives matter, all lives matter." Now, when does that become alive? Well, I think us guys here are in agreement. Just it's a lot earlier than what the media says.
Yes.
And so when she said that, it's like she went on to explain too. Did you know that Planned Parenthood? Do you know where most of those are? Where the buildings are? You know, Gene mentioned about how many? 600 of them, or how many Planned Parenthood facilities are there, Gene?
670 roughly.
And if you went and looked where most of them are, Mark, do you know where most of them are? They're in the ghettos.
Really?
The Planned Parenthood objective early on was to take the black race down. And I'm offended by that. If people don't know, I have a son, and he's a little bit darker than me. So, you know, that could have affected me if people don't stand up and rise up against this. So it's just when she said that Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, it really hit me in a good way.
Sure.
And but when I say all lives matter, I'm talking, you can't see this on the radio, but just this little baby right here.
That's right.
You can look at all the features, and it's just crazy that people don't think this is a life. Look at that. I mean, there's eyes, there's ears, and that's just weeks old. And and I'll tell you what, something jumped out. Gene took some pictures, but it's up on the building. It says Planned Parenthood, and I believe underneath it says caring, no matter what.
Wow.
And with the videos I've seen on TV, if that is caring, it just makes me sick that way. And I'll tell you what, for those that might be afraid to go to a rally, because I'll tell you what, the day before I left, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go to this rally in St. Louis. And I said, Gene Kolak's going with me. And she just had a piece because our women are concerned for us a little bit. Yeah. But when she said, oh, Gene, you go, don't get in trouble. But you know what? When you go to some of these things, if you don't go because you're afraid, then take a whole van load, because there is safety in numbers. But it's usually pretty good.
Sure.
But you got to be ready to fight.
Right. Hey guys, we're going to come back and talk a little more here just after 8:00 if we can. All right.
Sure.
We're with Gene and Steve this morning as we're talking about the anti-Planned Parenthood rally that was in St. Louis this past Tuesday. We'll come back and talk with the guys here more in just a moment. It is the Vine Morning Show. Here we are on this Friday morning. I'm Mark, and it's great to have you along this morning. Those watching on our YouTube channel this morning and also on cable TV channel 15. Welcome back as we're talking with Gene Kolak and Steve Smith as the gentlemen went over to St. Louis this past Tuesday at an anti-Planned Parenthood rally. And guys, we've been talking off the air about the main thing we need to do is we need to get more people involved. Because the more people you have involved, like you said, Gene, the more you have, the more effect you're going to have on people to understand there is a major issue going on here.
Absolutely. Back in the early 2009, 10, I attended some rallies in D.C. and they had an impact, and without getting into politics, but, one of those rallies had north of 1 million people there. And the things that were discussed that day, the people that were impacted that day, all of that has come full circle. And we would like to see more churches get involved, more local people get involved. How we do that, I don't have the magic answer. I just would like to see people be more aware of what's going on around them these days. I mean, look, I know we're all busy. We got jobs. We got kids in school. We have all these things that we do. But don't discount what's happening around you, because, we won't be so shocked when we see these things maybe. And if it does shock you, then if you have an opportunity to go voice your opinion or whatever and attend one of these rallies, by all means, take a day off and go. It will bless you beyond measure. And I can't say that it was the most pleasant day. It was about 100 degrees downtown St. Louis. I mean, everybody was wilting down, I got to tell you, but I felt like I should be there. And it was a blessing, really, to see what went on. And
you became more informed at that point.
I did. And if I could just give a plug out here, we were talking before the program. I'm adopted, and my birth mother and birth dad had 4 kids. And they were not married at the time. This was back in the 1950s. And before my birth mom, and she's passed away, was 17, she had 4 boys. Now, what would that mother do today? And I'm not saying she would have, but who knows? in their circumstances. I might just be one of those numberless millions that were aborted, and I wouldn't be sitting here today. There is an option that we can exercise, ladies, and I would for sure look at that. There are people out there that are willing to adopt you, and praise the Lord.
Amen. And Steve and Jean, Steve, you had this brochure, and people want to get involved. It's very simple to do. If go to www.womenbetrayed.com to sign up for an action kit.
Right.
And go visit that website. Become more informed, because the more you're going to become informed on this situation, which is an horrific situation anyway. If you've seen the videos, if you've followed everything, that's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to understand that this is totally wrong in the eyes of our Lord.
And Mark, I mean, we're talking about how do we get people involved.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was asked to go to Granite City years ago and be a protester there at their abortion facility. What gets me, it was by a very young lady. She was either in high school or maybe just starting college, but she'd asked me to go, and I'd been wanting to go for years, and I just never found the time. I feel bad about it now after going this week, because it literally took me years to get involved. But after we went and we seen what was going on and got more facts and figures, listened to some of the doctors that were there, some of the clients, and some people that's been blessed by adoption, and getting a full spectrum of, you can't compare it to what you hear on the news. I don't care what channel you listen to on the news. By going in person, I've got even more of a passion. Look, we got to stop this.
Yes.
And we got to let people know there's alternatives. I'll tell you what, I worked at Champion Laboratories for a lot of years, very blessed by doing that. And then I did go work for a health department for about 3 years. But the neat thing of it is I've got something to compare to. I worked at the health department, but my best part of working at the health department was my lunch. And that was going over to the Hope Pregnancy Center and spending my hour lunch over there and actually getting to do true work, helping young ladies and men make a good decision, at least throwing it out there that adoption is an option. And it was like night and day. And if anybody's ever read the book, I believe by Abby Johnson, the book Unplanned, she worked for Planned Parenthood, and she's turned her life around, and she's totally against it now. But she's been on one of the inside people. And I'll tell you what, when you really find out what's going on the inside, and I'm speaking from personal experience, and I shared this with Randy earlier, but some of the stuff that happens in just the health offices, which is kind of an outreach of Planned Parenthood when they're passing out condoms, and if you've got a young lady that's going to the health department and you're a mom, go with her, because maybe they'll treat your daughter a little bit better if they got a mom there with them. But the things I seen, I literally got sick over it. But I'm very thankful that the ladies at the pregnancy center kind of adopted me in, and they really changed my life on this subject. Because mostly, think about it, we're three guys here talking about women, but we got to get more men involved too. Because if you look at the pregnancy centers, it's mainly women working there, but us guys are part of the problem and part of the solution too.
And we need to get more involved, guys. That's the only way we're going to get to see this come to an end. We got to get more people involved, more communities involved.
Yes,
is a big thing, and we need to get our churches more involved in it as well. Absolutely, unbelievable.
And just to throw this plug out there, we do have a really good resource there in Fairfield, the Compression Pregnancy Center. I've served on a lot of boards throughout the years, and I got to tell you that was a great blessing on my life to be able to serve with those ladies out there. And if you're thinking about this as a young lady, I'm just going to throw this out there. Give those ladies a shot first before you go anywhere else. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to automatically turn everybody into their way of thinking. It may not work, but at least give them a shot. I mean, they're angels among us is what I call them, and it's a resource that we have. It's here. And if you're wanting a sonogram, or if you would like to have a sonogram, a lot of times that might be the one thing that would change your mind about having an abortion, and letting that baby come to term. So that's an option I think that we're blessed to have. So we could go down that road.
Yeah, amen. Guys, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
And anything else come up that we need to bring attention to the public, please come back on and let's share it and get the word out. And let's as guys, let's band together, men that are listening out there, And let's get together, get a rally planned, and go to one of these rallies and see what is going on behind the scenes at these things so we can put a stop to it. That's the only way it's going to happen, right, guys?
That's right. And we're going to take you with us next time.
I'm ready to go.
Thanks for inviting us, Mark.
All right.
Appreciate
Thanks, guys.
it.
And come back anytime. We got to update. Keep
Thank
people
you.
informed, all right?
All right.
Steve Smith and Gene Kolak this morning here with us on the Vine Morning Show as we've been talking about the Planned Parenthood rally that was in St. Louis this past Tuesday. And guys, men out there, I'm putting a challenge out, and I'm sure these guys are going to back me 100%. Let's get on board and let's go to one of these rallies sometime and just see and get the eyes opened up to see what's actually going on the other side.